Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network. The U.S. military is about to change forever, with a jaw-dropping $800 billion budget fueling next-gen weapons, AI warfare, and global dominance. But what does this mean for America's defense and the rest of the world? Let's break it down. Today, we're unpacking a truly monumental subject: the sheer scale and complex implications of the United States defense budget.
It's a huge topic, definitely.
Absolutely. And to really understand it, we'll be drawing insights from a whole stack of crucial sources. We've got transcripts from YouTube channels like Task and Purpose and Johnny Harris,
Some really sharp analysis there.
comprehensive reports from Procurement Pro and the Cost of War Project, and detailed analyses from, well, respected institutions like RAND Corporation and Brookings.
Top-tier research.
Our mission for you, our listener, is to extract the most critical facts and perspectives. We want to understand not just the numbers, but what they truly represent for global security, for American society, and for the future. So let's unpack this.
The staggering scale, billions, trillions, and what they buy.
Let's start with the raw numbers because, quite frankly, they are genuinely astonishing.
Almost unbelievable sometimes.
Right. When we talk about the U.S. defense budget, we're talking figures that don't just dwarf those of almost every other nation,
Not even close, usually.
but they reach into the trillions when you factor everything in. It's a sum so vast, it can be incredibly difficult to fully grasp without some serious perspective. For fiscal year 2023, for instance, the Department of Defense alone, and Task and Purpose highlighted this, received an astonishing $797 billion.
Almost $800 billion just for the DoD itself.
And looking ahead, President Biden's proposal for fiscal year 2025 requested an even larger sum, $850 billion for the Department of Defense.
And that's just the baseline request.
Exactly, because here's where the numbers truly escalate and give you a sense of the broader picture. If you factor in nuclear weapons activities and other defense-related spending,
Things outside the main DoD budget, yeah.
that figure climbs to $895 billion. That's according to analysis from the Brookings Institution.
Nearly $900 billion.
But, even these massive figures don't tell the full story of America's military commitment. The actual total U.S. military spending in 2023, covering everything,
All related expenditures.
reached an incredible $905.5 billion.
Wow. Over $900 billion.
To put that into perspective for you, this single nation's military expenditure was over 40% of all global military spending combined.
40% of the entire world's spending.
Yes, more than twice what the entire rest of NATO spent collectively.
That's staggering.
And it doesn't stop there. Profits of War reports on recent legislation approved just this July 2025.
So very current.
That tacks on another $156 billion. This pushes the annual U.S. military spending to an incredible $1.06 trillion.
Over $1 trillion annually.
It means the U.S. military budget has effectively doubled since the turn of the century, increased by a staggering 99% since 2000. It's almost unimaginable.
The near doubling in just over 2 decades.
And what does that kind of money represent within the broader federal budget? Task and Purpose notes this single budget consumed approximately half of all discretionary federal spending in 2023.
Half of everything Congress gets to decide on each year.
Pretty much. That's a staggering proportion of the federal pie dedicated just to defense.
It really makes you pause.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, what exactly does this colossal sum purchase? Is it just for building more weapons? What's the biggest misconception about how this money is actually distributed?
That's a fantastic question, and it really gets to the core of it. Most people do instinctively think of procurement, the flashy new jets and missiles.
Right, the hardware.
Exactly. But what's truly fascinating here is that the sheer scale of this budget, while immense, is actually distributed across very distinct and massive categories.
Okay.
This isn't just about weapon systems. It's about funding arguably the largest, most complex global logistics and human resources operation in human history.
Like running multiple giant corporations at once.
Pretty much, yeah. Akin to running multiple Fortune 500 companies simultaneously, spread across every continent. The weapons, in a sense, are almost a byproduct of this massive operational beast.
That's a different way to think about it.
So let's break down the key spending categories proposed for fiscal year 2025, because understanding these truly paints the picture.
Okay, let's do it.
The largest slice, by far, goes to operations and maintenance, or O&M, estimated at $338 billion.
O&M, $338 billion. What does that actually cover?
Well, the U.S. defense budget Scale, Challenges, and Geopolitics describes this as the core funding for the day-to-day running of the Department of Defense.
The daily grind, basically.
Exactly. Think about what that entails. This category alone covers the salaries and benefits for 795,000 civilian employees.
Almost 800,000 civilians. Wow.
That's a workforce larger than many entire national militaries. It funds the constant upkeep of equipment, from tanks to fighter jets to warships, making sure they're always ready.
Maintenance, repairs.
It pays for extensive training exercises around the globe, the fuel for a global fleet of planes and ships, and, a myriad of spare parts required to keep everything running.
Just keeping the lights on and the engines turning?
Precisely. The Brookings Institution aptly describes this as the cost to run perhaps the second largest organization on Earth.
Second largest. That puts in perspective.
And Johnny Harris further contextualizes this by noting that this O&M figure, around $352 billion in his analysis, is larger than the entire economy of Portugal.
Larger than Portugal's whole economy, just for O&M. Incredible.
It's truly an immense sum just for the daily operation.
Okay, so O&M is the biggest chunk. What's next?
Next, military personnel. This accounts for approximately $182 billion.
For the troops themselves.
Right. This crucial funding covers salaries, comprehensive benefits, robust retirement packages, and health care for the nation's 1.3 million active duty troops.
1.3 million active.
And an additional 800,000 reservists. But it goes even further.
How so?
It supports an estimated 2 to 3 million contractor personnel who are integral to various military operations, from logistics to intelligence.
So millions more people indirectly supported.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As the Brookings Institution points out, the goal here is to well compensate an all-volunteer force. This is particularly vital amidst the ongoing recruiting challenges the military faces today.
Makes sense. Need to attract people.
A competitive compensation package is essential to attract and retain the talent needed for a modern, complex fighting force.
Okay, O&M personnel. What about the future tech?
That's research development, test, and evaluation, or RDT&E. The budget allocates around $143 billion for FY 2025.
R&D, nearly $150 billion.
Yeah, building on the $124 billion spent back in 2022. This investment is squarely aimed at maintaining technological superiority on the battlefield, as described in the U.S. defense budget. Scale, challenges, and geopolitics.
Staying ahead of potential adversaries.
Exactly. This is where the future of warfare is literally being invented and refined. We're talking about cutting-edge focus areas like artificial intelligence.
AI is everywhere now.
Which is rapidly transforming everything from drone operations to cyber defense. Also, the development of autonomous submarines that can patrol vast ocean expanses undetected.
Robot subs.
Advanced military lasers capable of intercepting missiles. And even highly sophisticated personal equipment for soldiers, like exoskeletons, to enhance strength and endurance.
Sci-fi stuff becoming real.
It's about ensuring the U.S. stays not just a step, but often leaps ahead.
Okay, and then there's the actual buying of the big equipment, right?
Right, that's procurement.
Right.
This is perhaps what most people think of when they consider military spending. It's allocated approximately $168 billion.
Still a huge number, $168 billion for buying kit.
It is. This is the budget for purchasing the latest cutting-edge weaponry and equipment. And Johnny Harris gives us some astounding figures here that really bring the cost into focus.
Like what?
A single F-35 fighter jet costs $142 million.
One plane, $142 million.
Yep. A cruise missile, designed for precision strikes, comes in at $1.6 million per unit.
$1.6 million for one missile.
And even a troop movement vehicle, essential for ground operations, costs a hefty $372,000.
These aren't small purchases.
Not at all. They represent significant, often multi-year investments in the most advanced tools of modern warfare, each with a complex supply chain and years of research behind it.
So O&M, personnel, R&D, procurement, anything else major?
The last main category is construction. It receives approximately $19 billion.
Building things, bases, facilities.
Exactly. This substantial sum is dedicated to building new facilities and renovating existing ones, both domestically and across the vast global footprint of the U.S. military.
Like infrastructure investment.
Right. An example provided by Johnny Harris is the $85 million allocated for new jet fuel tanks in Japan.
$85 million just for fuel tanks.
Well, it's not just a simple gas station. It's critical infrastructure for fueling an entire air fleet in a strategically vital region. It highlights the immense investment required to support global force projection.
Okay, so those are the big buckets. O&M, personnel, R&D, procurement, construction.
Each indispensable and interconnected, making the U.S. military operate on its current unparalleled scale.
But beyond these main, often cited categories, you mentioned there are also significant hidden costs, right? Some things that might genuinely surprise people.
Oh, absolutely. These are substantial expenditures that aren't always immediately obvious when you hear the top-line budget numbers.
But they add up significantly.
Dramatically. They contribute hugely to the overall cost of maintaining America's defense posture and, perhaps more importantly, its long-term societal commitments.
Like what, for example?
Well, consider veteran benefits. A quarter of the U.S. military's entire defense budget, a staggering $120.5 billion, goes towards payments to retired personnel, housing costs, employment assistance, and a whole array of other benefits.
A quarter of the budget just for veterans? That's huge.
It is. But here's where the numbers truly become eye-opening. If you include the Department of Veteran Affairs.
Which is separate from the DoD budget, technically.
Right. If you combine them, the U.S. spends over $250 billion annually on veteran benefits.
$250 billion.
And Task and Purpose points out that this figure alone is more than China, Russia, and India combined spend on their veterans.
More than those three major powers combined, just on veteran benefits.
It speaks volumes about the nation's promise to those who served, but it also represents an immense ongoing financial obligation that will continue for decades.
A massive long-term cost. What else is hidden?
Then there's healthcare for active personnel. A hefty $50 billion of the Pentagon's budget is allocated specifically to healthcare costs.
$50 billion just for healthcare within the DoD.
Yes. This is not just a crucial non-negotiable expense for maintaining the health and readiness of the force, as noted in the U.S. defense budget.
Yeah.
Scale, challenges, and geopolitics.
Got to keep the troops healthy.
But it also represents a vast, complex healthcare system in itself, serving millions of individuals.
Another huge hidden enterprise.
Then there's the cost of the global presence. The U.S. maintains approximately 1,250 military bases globally.
1,250.
With about 800 of those located overseas across 80 different nations.
Bases in 80 countries. The logistics must be insane.
Insane and expensive. Johnny Harris highlights a particularly interesting detail about these overseas bases. They are incredibly expensive to run because they often replicate a slice of America within foreign countries.
What do you mean, like American shops?
Exactly. We're talking complete amenities like Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Subway, grocery stores stocked with products flown in from the United States.
Seriously, they fly in American brands.
They do. It's done quite intentionally to make military personnel serving abroad feel like they're right at home, which is a critical morale booster.
I can see that, but the cost.
It comes at a significant logistical and financial premium, turning every overseas base into a microcosm of American consumer culture.
Wow. Okay, veterans, healthcare, global bases. Any other surprises?
And finally, a less obvious but deeply impactful area of spending is humanitarian aid.
The military does humanitarian aid.
It provides crucial infrastructure and logistics for overall U.S. foreign aid, which totals $38 billion annually. Of that, $13 billion is specifically earmarked for humanitarian aid delivered via DoD assets.
$13 billion in humanitarian aid facilitated by the military.
And what's truly remarkable, as pointed out by Task and Purpose, is that the U.S. spends more on humanitarian aid than the next 11 countries combined.
More than the next 11.
The military's extensive logistical capabilities, its massive cargo planes, its naval fleet, are essential in rapidly deploying tens of thousands of pounds of civilian material and medical support anywhere with a suitable landing strip.
So they're using their transport network for good, essentially.
Providing critical relief during disasters and emergencies worldwide. So yeah, it's not all just about combat. A significant portion of this immense budget supports vital global humanitarian efforts.
The global policemen. Why this immense spending?
So when we analyze all these numbers, it naturally raises that big question you might be asking, why? Why does the U.S. spend so much more than any other country?
Right. It's not just a little more. It's vastly more.
Exactly. And this isn't just about military size, though it is the third largest in personnel behind India and China. More profoundly, it's about a strategic role the U.S. has taken on globally.
The global policeman idea.
Often referred to as being the global hegemon, or global policeman. Yeah. This role comes with inherent costs that are unparalleled, largely because no other nation attempts to project power and maintain stability on such a broad global scale.
It's a unique role, and it comes with a unique price tag. And Chris Cappy of Task and Purpose highlights this starkly. The U.S. spends more on its military than the next 9 countries combined.
9 countries combined, that says it all.
But interestingly, when you view it through a different lens as a percentage of GDP, it was 3.4% in 2023, which isn't dramatically higher than NATO's 2% target.
Right, it's a big chunk, but relative to the size of the U.S. economy.
It's maybe not as outsized as the raw dollar figure suggests. For context, Russia actually spent a higher percentage of its GDP on defense in 2023 at 4.01%. Brookings and U.S. defense spending. Budget, challenges, and global impact note this.
So proportion matters. The absolute amount is staggering, but as a slice of the economic pie, it's comparable to what some other major powers allocate.
Which brings us back to the why. What are the specific strategic objectives driving this level of investment?
Exactly. That global hegemon, or global policeman role, is a key driver.
Yeah.
Johnny Harris explains it quite clearly. The U.S. military strolls out throughout the entire globe, giving the U.S. control over every corner of the planet.
Control, or influence at least.
Right. Which in turn allows it to be the global policeman enforcing international rules and norms. This vast global presence is openly presented as the cost of being the global hegemon.
It's the price of leadership as they see it.
And by its very nature, the U.S. military is an expeditionary force. It historically does not fight on its own turf. Instead, it counters threats globally.
Always fighting over.
Which means maintaining forces, equipment, and logistics far from home, often in politically sensitive regions. This expansive global footprint is undeniably a primary driver of the immense budget and requires constant readiness to deploy anywhere, anytime.
So what are the official goals? What does the doctrine say this money achieves?
Official doctrine outlines very clear strategic objectives that necessitate this level of spending. They operate under what's called a one-war framework.
One war. What does that mean?
It means the U.S. military aims to be capable of fighting and defeating either China or Russia in a major conflict, but explicitly not both simultaneously.
Okay, defeat one major power, but not two at once.
That's a crucial distinction. Alongside this, it must defend the American homeland and maintain a robust nuclear deterrent.
Homeland defense, nuclear deterrence, standard stuff.
Plus, deter specific regional adversaries like North Korea and Iran, and crucially, maintain momentum against transnational violent extremist organizations like ISIS or Al-Qaeda.
Still dealing with terrorism threats.
This current one-war framework marks a significant shift from the Cold War era's two-war framework, which prepared for two simultaneous conflicts against less capable foes.
So a shift in focus to higher-end adversaries.
Exactly. The shift acknowledges the immense cost and complexity of modern warfare against sophisticated near-peer adversaries. It focuses on decisive victory in one major theater, even if it means accepting different risks or relying more heavily on allies elsewhere.
That has big implications for how the military is structured.
Profound implications for force structure, procurement, and even diplomatic priorities.
And it's not just about the number of troops or tanks, right? It's about their capabilities. You hear a lot about quality over quantity and overmatch.
Those concepts are absolutely central to American defense R&D. Recent administrations have prioritized military lethality, survivability, and adaptability over sheer quantity of forces,
Believing tech gives them the edge.
recognizing that technological superiority and the individual soldier's effectiveness often provide a decisive advantage.
So what does overmatch actually look like on the ground?
Well, it's about ensuring that every component of a U.S. military formation has an objective and overwhelming advantage. Task and Purpose points out a great example. Every U.S. soldier, even those in human resources far from the front lines.
Even HR troops.
Yes, they're equipped with modern ballistic body armor and night vision. This is in stark contrast to some adversaries who might only provide such advanced gear to key leaders or frontline combatants.
So protecting every single soldier is a priority.
This intense focus on soldier survivability, driven perhaps by an American sensitivity to battlefield losses, is a core reason for the substantial investment in individual equipment, equipping everyone, not just the elite.
And this quality focus extends to the big hardware, too.
Absolutely. The U.S. owns 11 of the world's 47 operational aircraft carriers. And these aren't just more numerous. They are significantly larger, more advanced, and more capable than any others.
Global air bases, basically.
Projecting power globally. The U.S. Navy also boasts 68 nuclear-powered submarines, a stark contrast to China's 12 and Russia's 29.
Huge advantage underwater.
And look at pilot training. American fighter pilots average around 210 flight hours per year.
How does that compare?
It's twice as much as their near-peer counterparts. Russian pilots log 60 to 100 hours, Chinese pilots 100 to 110 hours.
Double the flight time. That must make a
A
difference.
huge difference. This higher number is directly attributed to more funds for fuel and maintenance. It leads to more effective, more experienced pilots, and critically, fewer battlefield losses.
It's an investment in the people using the tech, too.
Exactly. Both cutting-edge technology and the invaluable human capital required to wield it effectively. But beyond direct combat readiness, there's another significant, often overlooked role, contributing to global stability and economic protection.
How does the military protect the economy?
Primarily through the U.S. Navy's expensive fleet, which constantly patrols global maritime shipping routes. This is incredibly important because, as the UN notes, around 80% of the global trade by volume and 70% of global trade by value are carried by sea.
The vast majority of trade goes by ship.
And the Navy's continuous presence directly ensures the safety and security of that cargo.
Keeping the sea lanes open.
Geopolitical expert Pierre Zion is cited in Task and Purpose, making a powerful point. He says the U.S. Navy, post-1945, essentially allowed global trade to flourish by ensuring anyone could go out anywhere and purchase any raw commodity, bring it home, process it into a finished good, and then re-export it for hard currency.
So, underwriting globalization, in a way.
In a very real way. The U.S. military, working with allies, helped secure peace in what is, relatively speaking, a historically peaceful era. Modern piracy, for example, is largely contained due to an alliance of different navies, often spearheaded by the U.S.
A hidden benefit most people don't think about.
This global economic safeguard, which underpins the flow of goods and services many of us take for granted, is a massive, ongoing operational cost that falls largely on the U.S. military.
Okay, that makes sense. Any other non-military upsides?
Definitely. We shouldn't forget the extensive non-military benefits and civilian spin-offs that often result from defense investment.
Like inventions that came from military research.
Precisely. The substantial R&D budget isn't just for weapons. Historically, the immense investment in military R&D has led to numerous civilian technologies we use every single day, often without realizing their military origins.
Such as?
Think about GPS. Guides everything from your car to your phone. Drones, now delivering packages and inspecting infrastructure. Early voice recognition. The computer mouse. Even the very foundation of the internet itself, ARPANET.
Wow, the internet too.
All technologies first developed, at least in part, by the U.S. military, or through its funding. And Task and Purpose points out, the Air Force alone spends $2 billion a year just keeping the GPS satellites running.
$2 billion a year just for GPS.
A technology provided for free worldwide, underpinning countless civilian applications and industries. These are tangible, widespread benefits that extend far beyond the battlefield.
The dark side of the budget waste, influence, and vulnerabilities.
Okay, so we have this colossal budget, immense global responsibility. You'd assume, or at least hope for, rigorous oversight, transparent spending, ironclad accountability.
You would hope so, wouldn't you?
But here's where it gets really interesting and frankly quite frustrating. Because the reality of accountability and efficiency in defense spending is, well, it's far more problematic than you might imagine.
It's deeply concerning.
This is where aggressive journalism, backed by solid justification from sources like Johnny Harris and others, truly shines a light on some deeply entrenched issues.
And what they find is often shocking. The persistent lack of accountability and waste within the Department of Defense is staggering.
How bad is it?
Johnny Harris states it bluntly. The U.S. Department of Defense has failed to pass an independent audit for 6 consecutive years.
6 years. Failing an audit. How is that even possible for a government agency?
It gets worse. It is the only federal agency unable to pass an independent audit 30 years after Congress required it to do so.
30 years. They've never passed one since it was required.
Never. This staggering lack of transparency means they often cannot fully account for how their money is spent or, alarmingly, where all their physical assets are.
They don't know where their stuff is.
Get this, 61% of their physical assets reportedly missing.
61%. That can't be right. That's over half.
That's the reported figure, 61%. This leads to potential overinvestment in equipment they already possess because they simply don't know what they have or where it is.
That's unbelievable. Just pure waste.
And the historical record is grim. A 2011 commission found that a shocking $31 billion to $60 billion spent in Iraq and Afghanistan was lost to fraud and waste. Task and Purpose reported on this.
Billions just gone to fraud and waste.
And the examples of direct overcharging by contractors are rampant, showcasing a systemic problem. KBR, a major contractor, was found to overcharge for dining halls overseas by 30–40%.
30% markup on food service.
Or even more egregious, Boeing charged the Pentagon $3,357 for a ball bearing that, astonishingly, could be sourced for $15.42 from their own warehouse.
$15 versus over $3,000 for the same part.
From their own stock. Furthermore, defense contractors are frequently found taking huge profits, sometimes operating with 40–50% profit margins.
40 to 50% profit. That's astronomical.
Translates into hundreds of millions, even billions, above typical business environments, all funded by taxpayer money. It raises serious, fundamental questions about efficiency, ethics, and oversight.
Is this just incompetence, or is there something systemic allowing this? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
If 61% of assets are missing and they haven't passed an audit in decades, it doesn't sound like simple incompetence.
Points to something deeper, yeah.
It points to a deep systemic issue. And who benefits most from this system? The influence of private contractors cannot be overstated.
The military-industrial complex, as Eisenhower warned.
Over half, a staggering 54% of the Pentagon's discretionary spending, totaling $2.4 trillion between 2020 and 2024, goes directly to private firms. That's from profits of war.
$2.4 trillion to private companies.
An astonishing amount of taxpayer money flowing into private hands.
And where does most of that go?
Get this. A truly astonishing $771 billion of these contracts went to just 5 major firms: Lockheed Martin, RTX, formerly Raytheon, Boeing, General Dynamics, and Northrop Grumman.
Just 5 companies got almost $800 billion.
More than twice the entire diplomacy, development, and humanitarian aid budget combined during the same period went to just those 5.
That's incredible concentration.
Industry consolidation over 3 decades has dramatically reduced the number of prime aerospace and defense contractors from 51 down to just these 5.
51 down to 5. That's created a huge monopoly issue, hasn't it?
Exactly. As Johnny Harris points out, if the Pentagon needs an F-35, there's only one shop in town that makes it: Lockheed Martin. This lack of competition allows prices to get pretty out of control.
Like that Stinger missile example.
Precisely. A Stinger missile increasing from $25,000 to nearly $500,000 in just a couple of decades. It's a systemic problem built into the very structure of defense procurement.
Where the incentive structure seems skewed towards profit, not necessarily efficiency or value.
It certainly looks that way.
And the influence doesn't stop at contracts, does it? It extends deep into the political process through extensive lobbying, campaign donations, and the revolving door.
Tell us about that.
Profits of War reveals that the arms industry employed 950 lobbyists as of 2024.
Nearly 1,000 lobbyists just for arms companies.
An increase of 220 from just 2020, all actively shaping policy and advocating for increased military spending.
Pushing for bigger budgets.
And defense contractors spend millions on campaign donations to influence our lawmakers into spending more money on the military. Lockheed Martin, for example, spent $2.7 million in a recent election cycle.
Millions in donations.
And interestingly, it was split pretty evenly between Democrats and Republicans, ensuring cozy relationships across the political aisle. It's a bipartisan effort to secure funding.
Playing both sides.
Perhaps most emblematic of this influence is the revolving door phenomenon.
Where officials go work for the companies they used to regulate.
Exactly. This allows top military leaders and Pentagon officials to move directly into high-paying positions with defense contractors after government service, leveraging insider knowledge and contacts to influence lawmakers.
Any prominent examples?
Jim Mattis, former Secretary of Defense, is a notable one. Moved between military service, General Dynamics Board, the Pentagon, and then back to General Dynamics.
Back and forth.
In 2022 alone, 672 former Pentagon employees were hired by top defense companies as lobbyists, board members, and executives.
Nearly 700 in 1 year.
Johnny Harris points out the symbolic physical proximity. The Pentagon is right across the road from defense contractors' offices in Pentagon City in Arlington, Virginia.
Literally neighbors.
Highlighting this symbiotic relationship. And to add another layer of potential conflict, some lawmakers who approve the Pentagon's budget even own stocks in defense contracting companies.
So they personally profit from increased spending.
Creates a clear conflict of interest where their personal wealth directly benefits from the budgets they approve. This whole setup raises serious questions about whose interests are truly being served.
It really does. And this ties into something called political engineering, right? Where the industry intentionally spreads itself out for political leverage.
Precisely. Christian Sorensen's map, which Johnny Harris powerfully highlights, illustrates how defense contractors intentionally allocate their operations across dozens of states and political districts.
It's not accidental where they build things.
Well, not at all. It's a strategic move to create jobs, which in turn incentivizes lawmakers to advocate for increased military spending because it directly benefits their constituents economically.
Give us an example.
Take Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi, prominent member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. He's a vocal proponent of increased military spending, particularly on shipbuilding.
Why shipbuilding?
Because the largest employer in his state is a naval shipyard run by the defense contractor Huntington Ingalls. More shipbuilding contracts mean more jobs and economic stimulus for his constituents.
So it helps him get reelected.
It creates what Johnny Harris describes as a virtuous cycle between lawmakers and contractors. Companies get contracts, create jobs, the lawmaker gets reelected, and they keep approving more money for the Pentagon.
A self-perpetuating system.
Johnny Harris calls it out directly. The money from our military spending is used to influence our lawmakers into more military spending. That's so clearly a conflict of interest.
Hard to argue with that logic.
This system creates an environment with very little political pushback to the endless ratcheting up of the military budget because no congressperson wants to be seen as costing their district jobs. It's an ingrained mechanism.
Okay, so massive issues with waste, influence, political engineering. But there are also fundamental problems with the supply chain itself.
Yes, beyond the deeply entrenched issues of waste and influence, the U.S. defense supply chain itself faces significant supply chain vulnerabilities.
What kind of vulnerabilities?
Procurement Pro notes that the entire behemoth U.S. defense supply chain is under increasing pressure. This is due to tightening senses of reshoring and a dissipating idea of globalization amidst a tense geopolitical landscape.
So the old ways of global supply chains aren't working as well.
The assumptions are breaking down. A core problem is the heavy dependency on foreign suppliers. The U.S. defense supply chain relies extensively on foreign sources, especially China, for critical materials.
Like what materials?
Rare earth elements, semiconductors, things essential for modern tech. This creates major vulnerabilities during geopolitical conflicts, trade restrictions, or even natural disasters.
Can't build weapons if you can't get the parts.
Exactly. And this is coupled with a steep, declining domestic manufacturing capacity. Decades of offshoring and deindustrialization have significantly reduced the U.S.'s ability to rapidly scale production of essential military equipment.
We just don't make as much stuff here anymore.
A prime example is shipbuilding. The U.S. industry has significantly atrophied, leaving the nation unable to match China's rapid naval expansion. Procurement Pro notes China can now produce ships far faster than the U.S. can.
Falling behind in critical areas.
Furthermore, technological obsolescence, also known as DMSMS, diminishing manufacturing sources and material shortages, is a constant headache.
Meaning parts for older systems are hard to find.
Exactly. Many crucial defense systems rely on outdated technologies no longer in production. Imagine trying to find spare parts for a computer from the 1990s to run a critical modern system.
Nightmare for maintenance.
And it directly ties into cybersecurity concerns, as older tech is inherently more vulnerable to modern threats.
Makes sense. Old software, more holes.
The lack of visibility across the multi-tiered defense supply chain is another critical issue. It's difficult to track the origin and movement of materials.
Like that equipment for Ukraine.
A glaring example, highlighted in Procurement Pro. Over $1 billion of military equipment designated for Ukraine seemingly disappeared in January 2024. Underscores fundamental tracking problems.
$1 billion just vanished.
Compromises accountability and readiness. And finally, there are significant workforce gaps. A shrinking skilled labor force in manufacturing.
None of skilled workers.
Due to an aging workforce and gaps in STEM education, limits efficient domestic production and maintenance. It's a bottleneck you can't just solve by throwing money at it.
People problem, not just a money problem.
These are all critical vulnerabilities impacting military readiness.
And as if all these internal issues, waste, influence, supply chain vulnerabilities weren't enough, there are also roadblocks to modernization and innovation.
Yes, external factors making it even harder to stay on the cutting edge. A scathing 2024 report by the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute gave U.S. defense modernization a dismal D grade.
Gay. That's failing.
They cited the Pentagon's failure to act on innovation priorities and pull through technologies at scale, putting it at risk of falling behind near-peer competitors like China.
Not getting new tech into the field fast enough.
The report further criticized customer clarity. That's how well the government signals its funding priorities to industry, also giving it a D.
Industry doesn't know what the Pentagon wants.
Or at least the signals are unclear. Even worse, predictable funding dropped to an F-, the lowest grade possible.
F-? How's that even a grade?
Directly attributed to budgetary chaos caused by Congress. Think about the impact. If you're a company developing advanced tech, how do you plan R&D, hire engineers, invest?
If you don't know if the money will be there next year.
Exactly. This unpredictable environment stifles innovation. Beyond financial issues, non-financial bottlenecks for defense startups include lack of access to classified spaces, testing resources, and painfully long security clearance times.
Bureaucracy getting in the way of innovation.
These aren't minor hurdles. They are systemic barriers preventing the rapid adoption of crucial technologies.
The trade-offs and the future. What does it all mean?
So this exhaustive analysis leads us to a crucial, maybe even existential question. Is this level of military spending, with all its flaws, truly making us safer?
That's the bottom line, isn't it?
It is, and this is where aggressive journalism, paired with solid justification from critical analyses, really forces us to look at the trade-offs, the opportunity costs, and potential solutions.
The discussion often circles back to the security dilemma,
Yeah.
right? And the opportunity costs.
Absolutely. While a strong military is widely seen as a deterrent, preventing conflict.
The idea that strength keeps the peace.
The security dilemma suggests a dangerous feedback loop. Growing one's military, even with purely defensive intentions, can be perceived as an offensive threat by adversaries,
Making them feel they need to build up too.
forcing them to do the same. This leads to an arms race, much like the US and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. That arms race eventually led both sides to amass over 10,000 nuclear warheads each.
Which Johnny Harris describes simply as madness.
It was madness, and you have to wonder, are we risking falling into a similar dynamic today with new global players?
Is our defensive buildup pushing others into an arms race?
That's precisely the challenge. The insight isn't just that it happened historically, but that the logic of the security dilemma is still very active. Is our current spending, aimed at security, inadvertently fueling a cycle that makes the world less secure in the long run?
Increasing the overall capacity for conflict rather than deterring it.
Potentially.
And when you look at the federal budget through this lens, the trade-offs become stark. Approximately 50% of discretionary spending goes to defense,
Half the pie.
while only 1% to 2% goes to the Department of State. Diplomacy.
A huge imbalance.
Johnny Harris notes, this clearly shows where priorities lie, overwhelmingly favoring a show of force over diplomacy and other foreign policy tools.
Critics powerfully argue this vast military spending diverts funds from pressing domestic issues, healthcare, education, climate change, infrastructure, poverty.
The guns versus butter argument.
The very definition of security is broadened here to include economic stability, social services, safe living conditions, not just military protection. Are we truly secure if we're militarily strong but facing foundational societal needs that are underfunded?
A profound trade-off for society to consider.
And it's also critical to get a nuanced perspective on allied contributions. You constantly hear the refrain that U.S. allies don't contribute enough.
The 2% GDP target argument.
Right. But focusing solely on that 2% target can be misleading. A RAND Corporation study, updated in 2023, shows something interesting.
What did Rand find?
The U.S. share of the collective defense burden has actually decreased from 53% at the end of the Cold War to 39% by 2023.
So allies are picking up more of the slack.
Relatively speaking, yes. While the U.S. share is still the largest, it's far from bearing the entire burden. Other NATO countries collectively accounted for 38%, Asian allies 13%, Middle East South American allies 10%.
So it's more balanced than often portrayed.
The RAND study goes further. It analyzes a country's share of the defense burden relative to its share of total allied GDP, a measure of fair share.
How does it look?
In 2023, 19 countries, including the U.S. at a ratio of 1.07, met or exceeded their fair share. Notably, NATO's collective ratio was 1.7, slightly exceeding the U.S.'s.
So NATO as a whole is pulling its weight by that metric.
According to this RAND analysis, yes. And it considers more than just direct spending. It includes crucial military capabilities contributed by allies' tanks, aircraft, subs, plus peacekeeping missions, and the significant economic costs of enforcing sanctions.
Like Spain losing exports due to Russia sanctions.
Exactly. Spain incurred over $10 billion in export losses since 2018 due to enforcing sanctions, despite its lower direct defense spending. Contributions are far more diverse than a single budget percentage.
So focusing only on the 2% misses the bigger picture.
The RAND report suggests hammering countries about abstract targets isn't the most effective approach. A more focused strategy, identifying where specific capabilities are needed, might be better. It's about collective impact.
Okay, so if these are the pervasive challenges, waste, influence, vulnerabilities, complex alliances, what are the actionable solutions and strategies for fixing things, particularly the supply chain issues?
Procurement Pro outlines a multifaceted approach. It's a complex overhaul needing significant time and political will.
What's the first step?
First, reducing foreign dependency is paramount. This means actively increasing domestic production of critical materials, rare earths, semiconductors through tax incentives, grants like the CHPS Act,
Bring production back home.
or strengthen ties with trusted allies like Australia, Japan, Canada for secure resource access, create resilient networks, and strategically stockpile critical materials.
Like a national emergency reserve.
The U.S. has already invested over $500 million into domestic rare earth supply chains since the early 2020s, but rebuilding entire industrial ecosystems is a generational project.
It's not a quick fix. It means rebuilding industries.
Massive investment, navigating regulations, developing a skilled workforce that often doesn't exist at scale anymore. It might mean accepting higher domestic costs, too.
Which is politically tough. Okay, what else?
Second, improving domestic manufacturing. Actively reshoring production with targeted incentives. Modernizing factories with automation, advanced tech like additive manufacturing,
3D printing parts, things like that.
and crucially, streamlining procurement processes to reduce bureaucratic delays that hamstring production and inflate costs. The Biden administration expanded the Defense Production Act for this reason.
Using government power to boost critical production.
Third, enhancing supply chain visibility, especially given that missing $1 billion for Ukraine. Need advanced digital systems, blockchain, AI for real-time tracking.
Know where everything is from start to finish.
Mandate strict transparency requirements for contractors about their suppliers. Use predictive analytics to anticipate disruptions. It's a huge data challenge. Fourth, combating obsolescence and strengthening cybersecurity. Proactive investment in R&D for modern replacements for old tech. Strengthen cyber measures across the whole supply chain like the CMMC framework.
Making sure old tech isn't a weak link.
Encourage open architecture systems for easier upgrades, preventing new systems from quickly becoming outdated. Foster modularity.
Make systems easier to update.
Fifth, mitigating economic shocks. Build resilience. Establish redundant suppliers in diverse locations. Move from just-in-time to just-in-case inventory with safety stocks.
Oh, don't rely on single sources.
Strengthen logistics networks. Establish regional supply hubs to decentralize. Ensure the whole system doesn't grind to a halt if one part breaks down.
And finally, the people problem.
Finally, closing the workforce gap. Invest significantly in STEM education. Offer robust apprenticeships, vocational training in defense manufacturing. Create pathways to skilled jobs.
Train the next generation.
And retain experienced workers through flexible retirement, mentorship roles, so invaluable knowledge isn't lost. These are all active steps being discussed and implemented.
It's a massive undertaking on multiple fronts. So what does this all mean for you, our listener, when we weigh the sheer scale of U.S. defense spending against the very real challenges of waste, the deep influence of industry, and the evolving global landscape?
It leaves you with some tough questions.
It leaves us with a compelling question. Can a system so deeply intertwined with profit and political incentives truly optimize for the nation's and the world's security?
Or does it risk an infinite escalation, as some sources put it?
An escalation that may not serve our deepest needs. It's a complex balancing act with profound implications for both our domestic priorities and our place on the global stage. That's it for this segment of the Global WarWatch Network. If you found this discussion insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to the Global WarWatch Network.
We really want to hear your thoughts on this critical topic.
Absolutely. Share them in the comment section below. You can also join us on social media. All the links are provided in the description.